I was meant to be pretending I know how to drive a rally car, blasting through stages reviewing this expensive DLC for WRC10. Except it's not DLC. It's called WRC Generations and they are selling it as if it's a whole new game. It was while looking at these career mode screens and wondering exactly where the dev time went that I recalled a thought I've had for a long time now. Racing games should really be a service.
Smithers, are they booing me?
Okay, now put your pitchforks down, extinguish those torches and hear me out. I know the reputation basically anything as a service has. You have Mercedes locking the full power of motors behind paywalls, Intel holding the full features of chips to ransom unless you pay up the big bucks. Then there is Apple taking a 30% cut of anything you pay for on your phone. No, wait, everyone's cool with that one for some reason, aren't they? Okay, but the point I'm trying to make is that, yeah, subscriptions suck, but I think I can prove to you that racing games as a service can work, are working, and, while not perfect, for some games it just might be exactly what you want. Games as a service has, let's say, a marketing problem. People hate them. So why am I talking about this at all? What's the problem with games just as they are? Well, not that much to be honest. I'm not going to try to gaslight you by talking about how modern games are trash because they just aren't. There has never been so many great racing games of all types on the market. It's almost as if we're in some golden age of racing. Want a stunning arcade rally game? Have Art of Rally. Want a brilliant GT3 simulation? Take Assetto Corsa Competizione. Want to imagine you are Max Verstappen? Here's Wreckfest. But as great as the racing game scene is, I can't help but feel that we've reached some sort of peak. And as if to back me up on this point, along comes EA right on cue to cancel the Project Cars franchise. And there are also strong rumours that they've killed the Dirt series too. What is interesting here is that both of these are traditional standalone games, the types of games that take truckloads of money and large development teams to build. What EA didn't cancel is F1, and you know why would they? Even EA themselves couldn't point out more than 3 things that were changed in F1 2022. 2 of which are complete nonsense, and frankly the whole thing could have been added to F1 2021 as DLC, but they got to release it as a whole new game with a whole new price tag to match. Good times if your name is EA. But they aren't the only ones. The WRC games, which coincidentally are now also under EA, have been doing this for years. Add a new stage, some different textures on the cars, well that's a new game right there, isn't it? That'll be another $60, thanks. And can you really blame the industry for going this way? Traditionally, a racing game might take 2 to 5 years to make and cost tens of millions of dollars. Then, when you finally release the game, who knows if it's going to sell? Maybe we're just going to be in debt by 30 million. To make matters even worse, game sales are front-loaded. You can see from these Steam sales numbers that if an average game brings in $50,000 in revenue in its first week, that game is going to go on to make only another $150,000 in the entire year that follows. Where is the money for patches and DLC going to come from? There is a reason why the only credible Gran Turismo competitor since Forza 1 has been crowdfunded, and that's because building a large racing game these days is an incredible financial risk. There is a solution to this of course, and you know what I'm going to say it is. Let's imagine a hypothetical F1 forever. It's just like F1 2022, but you don't pay $60 straight up, you instead pay $2.50 per month. Sounds like you're either going to get some cut down rubbish or it's just a dream. But it's entirely possible, and here is why. Games such as F1 don't change much year to year. Put up some F1 games side by side and can you even tell which one is which? Which of these is worth $60 and which is so old it's only worth a $5? What takes time and money to develop in a racing game is that initial investment, making the game engine and all of the assets. But this is a marginal cost if you can spread it over a decade. Something like $2.50 a month would be more than fair for the developers to patch in the latest liveries and stat tweaks to keep the game bang up to date each year. And it would take near zero work to just leave all the previous seasons in there if they started offering the game as a service a few years ago. We could select what F1 season we want to race from the menu and still have the definitive F1 ray-traced experience for the price of an indie game. This would open up interesting gameplay options like, what if Ferrari entered their 2021 car into the 2022 championship? If the game was a service and they kept building on top of the old game, then mixing content like this is a no-brainer. Instead of $60 per year for each new F1 title that throws out all the old career mode, we are now paying a max of $30 per year, and not just for the content of the new game, but for all of the content that was ever created. That is just hands down win. But I know some of you will still not be convinced, but remember, there are no rules here. We can have hybrid models also. Say you don't want to pay per month but still want all the content. There's nothing stopping developers to offer offline packs. Say like $40 gets you all the current single player content to play whenever you like, subscribed or not. There are technical challenges to overcome, but nothing that's insurmountable. It's all just a matter of willpower. What makes this all possible is the elimination of risk. Right now, it's a safe bet that a game like GT7 is being worked on by a split team. There would be a handful of devs and artists working on improvements and content for GT7, but the rest of the team would be working on GT8. And that's how it has to be, because all those developers need to be paid, and you aren't getting another big payday till you release another big title. So if you bought GT7, you get what you got at launch for that $70, plus the occasional few cars here and there, and if you're lucky, a new track. That's until a few years have passed and GT8 is released. Then it's another $70 and you are back to square one in terms of content. But with a subscription model, the whole team can be working on the one title. The impact of this is that content would come faster. That update that comes once a month with 3 cars can now contain 8. That track every year to never can now be every few months. All those gameplay and physics fixes that never seem to get done can now be directly tackled by the devs who don't have to focus on the next game. Of course, this model won't suit all games. A game like GT7 is a worst case scenario for my argument. It comes loaded with content and there are many years in between releases. Worse yet, the developers release more free content than anyone else. If you do the maths over multiple years, it can look pretty bad. Say you play GT7 for 3 years. By now it has expanded to 470 cars and let's say 37 locations. That is pretty good for your initial laydown of $70. You have ended up paying a mere $190 per month for a product that took many millions to make. By contrast, our hypothetical GT as a service would have cost you a solid, let's say, $4 per month, which totals $144 by now. What an insane ripoff. But this is only if you really do play GT every single month. Now let's be honest, many players don't. As the PSN trophy stats will tell you, many gamers pay full price for games that they barely play at all. So if the hypothetical GT as a service did come out, you could spend $4 and play for the first month. Then in another 6 months, come back and spend another $4 to play through all of the new stuff that has been added since you last experienced the game. This could continue indefinitely. Imagine in a few years being able to pay the price of a cup of coffee to get access to a GT game that has years worth of content and right up to the minute tech. Imagine if this concept was introduced way back when GT4 was released. Right now you could sign up for a month and access everything in GT4, 5, 6 and 7, all in the latest engine. For casual to moderate players, this is just pure win. The tougher sell is to the hardcore, who would be taxed month in, month out. But it's not like it's just an added cost. Sure, you're paying more, a lot more in fact, but you're also getting a lot more. And this seems fair, and remember, this is all worst case. For games like F1 or WRC, it's just pure win. But you might be saying, why not just buy the old games? Old games are cheap. The issue is that if you want to be able to race humans, and if you're here, you probably do, then you need to be on the latest release, because that is where everyone else is. As soon as the current year edition of your game is released, then you either have to pony up the cash or leave multiplayer and game updates behind. That is even if the online services for that game still exist, which touches on one huge negative people level at any online game. What happens when the service ends and the game is shut down? I'll admit this one is a tough one. You are completely at the mercy of developers and publishers. Anything as a service can be patched to work offline and forever into the future. The will to do so just needs to be there. Developers can hack the online events out of menus, patch some network proxy into the code, or systematically patch out all network calls. Then they can bundle it up in one nice download that can work forever. The will to do so just needs to be there, and of that, there's just no guarantee. Of course, the elephant in the room here is iRacing. The game may well be an example of a game as a service that is already working, but it's also an island. Its lack of features, its terrible graphics, poor UX and ridiculous pricing isn't because it's an online game, it's because that iRacing has never had to seriously fight for its own position on the grid. Why try harder when you're already number one? Now don't get me wrong, I don't believe everything should be a service. Take games like Art of Rally or Wreckfest. They are small, self-contained and don't need a stream of updates. Let me pay once and keep them forever. And I'm certainly wary of the way everything seems to be turning into a subscription. The amounts might be small, but it's like death from 1,000 cuts for your bank account. All I want to point out here is that good things can come out of a subscription model. We need to get over the stigma. The concept itself isn't bad. The fact is that yearly updates are already screwing us. So is every new game that comes out without the content that was in the last one. So is DLC that costs nearly as much as the original game did. It's already happening, and companies like EA are already laughing all the way to the bank. What you might think now as a scummy corporate tactic might just be the best deal you're ever going to get.
I was saying boo earns.